What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Sunday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. A little instant reaction on this Sunday edition, Week 17 of the NFL. 1 o'clock games in the books. Now, if you heard us earlier today on BYP, Lloyd and I broke down a lot of the action. And obviously, we'll get right into it. Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 1029 FM. The Game, Mondays 8 to 9, Coastal Sports Network, joins me on Back Your Play and The Drive. We'll get to kind of the big news of the day, and that was the Giants who decided to show up after about 7 years of bad football, and they put a thumping on the Colts. And in the process, not only do the Giants get the win, and they put up a substantial amount of points today, mind you, 45 and a 45-33 win. They knocked the Colts out of playoff contention. Colts are eliminated, and now the Giants have slid from the top spot in the NFL draft. They're sitting at the top 5 right now, and I'll give you the accurate picks in a moment. Listen, all I can say is this. I said if there was going to be a week, it was probably going to be this week. They were 8, 9-point dogs against a Colts team. You saw from the get-go, they started to play hard. Drew Lock making plays, Neighbors making plays, the defense making plays. They get a kick return to open up the second half. They put a 45 at home. They don't go winless at home. Drew Lock, 5 touchdown passes. Now everyone's saying he changes the course of NFL history. Listen, stop. New England right now is number 1. Tennessee is number 2 because they lost to Jacksonville, and the Giants sit at number 3. Tanking in the NFL. Well, I say this tongue in cheek, and I say this in jest. Like, what do fans, what do we want the players to do? Not tackle, not block, miss kicks, drop passes, blown assignments. You got too much on the line. You're talking about incentives, contracts. It's on film. So, listen, I thought they were going to lose out. I had a sneaky suspicion they were going to at least cover today, but they put up 45. And right now, everyone's having fun on social media, which you can't really take serious. The Giants go from the top overall pick in April's draft to now number 3. And Lloyd, by the way, it also avoids having the, I guess, humiliation, of having the Eagles roll over next week. And we'll get to them in a moment. But you see the Giants today, and you probably think to yourself, where the hell was that the last 2 months?
I had to have it, man. Had to get that home win. And it was funny. They were celebrating with some fans that were there. But you and I both are getting texts from all our Jersey and New York people, and they're all like, where has this been all season? It's been just craziness, but good solid win for them. And the defense did come to play today. I mean, Burns, Thibodeau, they were getting some heat on Flacco, and he looked like a 40-something-year-old quarterback making mistakes. And you also talk about offensively. I mean, Malik Neighbors had a huge game for them, just turning around that defense. And then Drew Lock, do they go with him next season? I doubt it though. But hey,
But I text you this. I said I want to listen. You want to have him as a bridge? Have him as a bridge, man.
come on.
17 to 23, 309, 4 touchdowns in the air, and then he added one scrambling. And you mentioned Neighbors went off 7 for a buck 71 and a pair of touchdowns. Robinson got into the mix. Slayton got into the mix. Good to see him get in the end zone. I guess my point is this: is there anyone? Why do people think it's a foregone conclusion that the Giants were going to draft Shedeur Sanders? Yeah, and that's like everyone thinks you're not paying attention. Like if Dable keeps his job, he basically wants a guy like May. He doesn't want a Shedeur Sanders. And I
Yeah.
feel as though everyone's thinking, oh my God. Now look, you get the number 1 draft pick, then you can trade that pick for assets. But I don't know. Like, what is your thought on tanking, first of all?
It's too hard in the National Football League. And these guys are professionals. We see this every year, week 17, week 18, where they're going to fight to the end, in their incentive clauses. There's film for other coaching staffs that are going to next season. And they want to make an impression. And some of these guys, their careers are short. Let's not forget, most football careers about 3, maybe 4 years. And, they're going to go out there and compete hard and try to fight for their job because there's 53 jobs on every team, and they may be getting their only opportunity, with a veteran guy getting hurt, going on IR, and they're getting their chance. So, you know, a lot of moving parts. These guys are going to fight till the end, and I like to see it. We all laugh tongue in cheek that the Giants threw it away and everything, but it's good to see them still giving some good effort because everyone hates those like last preseason games every year where it's just a joke out there.
Yeah, and listen, I think the Giants, if listen, the Giants are going to play hard next week. They're going to sell out. They don't want Saquon to get a buck something. And a lot of people think this is if the Eagles rest starters, the Giants might have an opportunity to wax the Eagles. You close out the season with a couple wins. Okay, we get it. Draft status. I would be more aggravated. You lose the top pick because you can trade that you can trade that pick. I mean, think about this. Dable, think about the guys that he knows in the league to get him to where he is. And then if you check Tankathon and if you look at the draft order right now, listen, the Raiders are sitting there at 8. What if the Giants turn around and be like, hey, we'll give you the third pick, but this is what we want, right? I mean, Cleveland, Giant fans need Cleveland to go beat Miami. It's a cluster right now in the top 4, 5, 6 spots, right? Does Buffalo rest next week and New England has an opportunity to beat the Buffalo Bills? So to your point, Daboll was not going to go out like this. I mean, I think today's win for the Giants saved Brian Daboll and Joe Shane's job, to be quite honest, because they played with emotion. They played with intensity, passion, heart. They played hard. They made plays. I mean, the Giants for 1 week, for one game, for one afternoon, look like a professional football team. And Mara sits there and says, we got to win at home. Everyone can go enjoy New Year's. The fans wanted us to tank, be damned, go scratch, whatever. And the coach coached them up. So again, man, I thought the Colts had an opportunity in the second half. I thought the Giants emptied the chamber, but it is what it is. And again, we don't know how next week's going to play out. And I think if everyone thinks the Giants were so guaranteed to draft Sanders, they're not paying attention. Now you look at the rest of the NFC East and a game that we thought the Eagles were going to whitewater and whitewash the Cowboys. They did. They covered the number easily. By the way, the Giants were 8.5-point dogs. So if you hit them on a money line, congrats. But the Eagles put up 41 against the Cowboys. Pickett was banged up. Saquon had a monster game. Smith made plays. Brown made plays. And the Eagles now lock up the NFC East. And again, it's all about seedings at this point. But the Eagles did what they needed to do. They got the win.
Yeah, the Eagles get a dominant win, and now they're going to sit and kind of wait and see if Detroit gets the job done, and I'll kind of dictate what they're going to do too. But I think at this point they're probably going to rest their guys because home field will probably be locked up in the bye for the Detroit going into next week, and yeah, Saquon only probably needs about 103 yards against the Giants to break Eric Dickerson's record, but in the end, and I've been debating this on my show over each week. How important really is that record? I know the offensive line wants it, Saquon wants it, etc. But that's not going to, in terms of seeding and importance to the team and keeping him healthy. It's more important to kind of say, okay, put that record aside. He got his 2,000, which puts him up there with some other backs. But most of these guys that got 2,000 yards, their team didn't have that great championship season. So going to be interesting, but good solid win for the Eagles. And as you talk about Devontae Smith, huge game for them. Kenny Pickett went out there and did his job, and the defense was stinging. So Dallas, roster for roster, they just could not measure up the Eagles.
Yeah. So a couple things with this. If you look at playoff seedings right now, okay, again, as it stands, and I'll get into it, but point being, you're right. I mean, if you look right now in the NFC, for instance, Detroit is 13-2, Minnesota and Green Bay. That game is basically 4 seedings. That's all it is. It's just 4 seedings. So you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, you're going to get a bye. You can rest some players. Okay, ultimately, sure, you want to rub salt in the Giants' wound and you want to have Saquon go run wild, have fun with it. But what if he gets hurt? What if, what I would rest linemen. I honestly, I mean, think about it. If you're really being smart about this, you crush Dallas, you claim the division, you secure what looks like the number 1, 2 seed, depending upon how the rest of the Week 17 schedule plays out. And you rest guys, and you get the record. But if a player gets hurt or you get bounced in a division, well, like what? I don't know. I guess the point being is you're right. I mean, if they lose in a divisional round, NFC Championship, does anyone really? Oh man, remember when Saquon broke the record against the Giants? I don't know. I mean, I think they have some decisions to make here if you really want to sit players, or again, you turn around and he gets the record, then you sit him right away.
And it's going to be interesting to see what Sirianni does. And he had his history on us again, sidelines once again. And it's just going to be interesting, Q, as they move towards postseason. Is he the coach to lead these men to victory? They had a lot of penalties. They got another guy thrown out again today, and
Which was Bush
just
League, by the way. And
yeah,
how
just
about no
chippy
tush
stuff.
push on that 4th and 1 on the second drive? He punts.
Yeah, you just don't know what kind of decisions he's going to make, and it's going to come down to strong decisions by him. And Hurts, it's got to come back from his concussion. You got to see how he's going to be. So, he may have a long layoff if they don't play anybody against the Giants. So it's going to be a lot of interesting things going on in Philadelphia this week.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just look at it. Jalen Hurts got concussed. He wasn't going to play today. So, you rest him up, right? You can probably, most likely, you'll sit him against the Giants. But a lot of times when you get concussed, chances are a couple hits here and there, there's a likelihood you can get concussed again. They got to be wary of that. Can he pick it with the ribs? You got to be wary of that. You don't want players getting hurt in a meaningless game. Now, if we look at if they're locked in, I mean, obviously they're not, the loss to Washington pretty much screwed them getting the number one seed because if you look at conference records, Detroit's 9-1, the Eagles are 8-3. And Detroit basically overall record 13-2. And there you have it, right? So I think it's going to be interesting how they approach this game. I think they want Saquon to get the record. I think Sirianni wants to stick it to the Giants in some way, shape, or form. But again, point being, if you are the Giants, you got the win. And if you're going to get bounced out of the top spot in April's draft, then you might as well get it done today than have the friggin' Eagles turn around and just spite you and roll over. If that makes kind of sense, that's adding more salt to the wound. So Dallas did what they needed to do. Talk about the draft position. The Raiders, my buddies were texting me, what the hell are the Raiders doing? Antonio Pierce is going to be fired. I don't see any scenario where Antonio Pierce is back, but they put up 25. They beat a bad Saints team. That kid Bowers is a friggin' beast at tight end. And the Raiders get a win on the road. And as it stands, again, via Tankathon, the Raiders now went from the 3rd spot all the way to 8. So right now it's New England. They lost. Tennessee lost to Jacksonville. Giants get the win. Cleveland would be the 4 seed, 4th pick. Jacksonville and the Jets, who we'll get to in a moment. But are you surprised that the Raiders are still trying to win ball games and play hard for Pierce? Because I think he's done.
Yeah, they're trying to make a run for him like they did last season and save his job, like you're saying. But I didn't think there was much chance going into this game in terms of Antonio Pierce and his longevity with this team. The team is just underachieved. I know that some people point to injuries, etc., but the group has just been undisciplined. Outside of Bowers, who really have not been a lot of playmakers. But the
Yeah.
Saints, conversely, everybody got rid of Dennis Allen. You just saw how bad that team was. They didn't have Miller out there. They didn't have Kamara. They didn't have Carr. No one. They really didn't have any of their frontline players in this game. So at the game, hey, like you said, they got to go out there and play. They got to play hard. What are they not going to tackle? So yeah, the Raiders went out there and they won a football game, and their locker room is not thinking about next season. They're just thinking about today, and Pierce will be happy for this win. But next week is going to be a tough one for them. I think the Chargers are going to be ready to play for the Raiders, and they put it on them.
Yeah, it's just funny, man. I was just scrolling through social, and some of my Giant friends even texting me while we're on the air. I mean, they're livid, and I don't know what to tell people. Like, coaches don't want to lose games in the NFL. Players don't want to lose. I mean, again, if they lost out, if they lost to the Colts and lost to Philly in Week 18, the pick would be theirs, right? I mean, it's theirs now. Again, there's a chance the Eagles rest the starters in Week 18, which can mean another Giants win, though probably not. I told you this. I would rather trade the pick Even if it's a top five pick, get assets and get a bridge quarterback. And I stand by that. I stand by that. I'm not going to change that. Right now, Miami and Cleveland knotted up at three apiece. Tampa Bay got a huge win. They put pressure on Atlanta. Think about this. Tampa, when they needed to, right? Baker Mayfield, brilliant today against Carolina, 5 touchdown passes. They put up 48 points, man. Tampa Bay can friggin' score. I mean, listen, they can score, man, and they got a ridiculous offense. And Baker Mayfield, I think he's close to 40 touchdowns, well over 4,000 yards for the season. I mean, that's pretty impressive what he's been able to do, and they took care of business today when they needed to.
Yeah, the Buck now they're starting to look like the Bengals coming down the stretch. I mean, these two teams are high flying, putting a lot of points, and Mike Evans, everybody was like, oh, could he get to 1,000? Well, forget that. I mean, he's going to go past that, and he gets a couple touchdowns. And Mayfield, as you said, he as long as he's clean in the pocket, he's able to get the ball out of his hands, make the big plays. Bucky Irving has really come along, solidified the running back position for him. Their defense has been banged up all season, but they did just enough to hold off Carolina that was there scrappy early on, and then next thing you know, they blew that game wide open. So good win for them, and they're going to sit back and wait. And I have a funny feeling on Sunday Night Football that Atlanta is going to have a tough time with Washington. So it's going to come down to Week 18 for that division.
Jags get the winner over the Titans. We mentioned Titans 3-13, Jacksonville 4-12. The number, moved drastically in the Cleveland and Miami game, by the way. We'll talk a little more about that tomorrow. You mentioned Atlanta and Washington, and then you got Monday Night Football, Detroit and the 49ers. But really, the big game that's going on right now, obviously, major seeding, playoff implications, NFC, Packers, Vikings, 6:22 to go in the first quarter. That game is scoreless. And then you had an absolute disgraceful performance today by the Jets. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't know if this is a situation now where if you didn't think it was time to move on from Rodgers after the season and just blow it up and start all over today, you lose 40-14. And listen, that pretty much Buffalo could have put up 50 if they wanted to. I mean, Josh Allen, pedestrian effort today. The Jets pulled Rodgers. He was beyond ineffective. The Giants go and play hard for their head coach and GM and their fan base. And then the Jets go out on the road and just don't even show up against Buffalo.
Once again, you're looking at a Jets team that's done, and they got rid of Salah. They got rid of their
Joe
GM,
Douglas. Yep.
Joe Douglas, and now the last shoe to drop is Aaron Rodgers. And you saw he kind of disinterested in this game. Devontae Adams got hurt in this one, and he just did not play with any efficiency. He had 2 interceptions, was very tentative in the pocket. He even got a dumb personal foul penalty on the sidelines where he hit somebody after an interception. And he had kind of like a smirk, like, "Yeah, I hope this is over soon." And you know what? If he wants to play next season, the Jets will probably say go somewhere else to probably
Yeah.
cut him because they need to blow this thing up. It's just ugly, and he got Woody Johnson and his situation. What's going to happen with him? But all the cards are on Johnson's table. He's the owner of the team, and I think he wants to remake his overall franchise. And he put all his eggs in a Rodgers basket, and it just did not work.
No, it hasn't. And you can't have a veteran quarterback, a future Hall of Fame quarterback, who every time he throws an incomplete pass or he can't move around and scramble and throws a bad pass, yell at a tight end or running back out of the backfield or a wide receiver. I mean, he's the opposite of what a leader should be, right? And you got to listen to these post game talking about, he's still out there, he's in the locker room. He's not. He's just not. He is a selfish player that only cares about himself. Period. And it's like, wow, it's like it's not going to click for him at all at this stage of the game. It really isn't. And I agree with you. I think you have to blow it up. They're an embarrassment. I mean, there's really this is a team, and you were again, you thought they were going to be a very good playoff team, and I told you in the beginning of the year, I told you in August, I did not think this team was making the playoffs. I thought this team was maybe going to win 6 or 7 games. I saw the handwriting on the wall. I called this prior to them making the move for Aaron Rodgers. I kept screaming, go after Lamar Jackson, and here we are. I mean, I think this is one of the most colossal choke job, disappointing seasons in NFL history, especially for a New York team. Well, both of them, but more importantly, the Jets, because of the expectations.
And that's what, everybody's saying, oh, they haven't been in the playoffs in forever since I think 2010, 2011. And they just thought the talent that they assembled was good enough, but it was old talent. And it was, retreads and it's guys that it, they're hired guns. A lot of these free agency type of guys, you bring them in and they're just trying to work for their contract, and they need to do a better job in the draft. And Rodgers just was a failure, and he was junior GM. Let's not forget he brought this team together. I was just reading a big article on how he recruited Alan Lazard and politics for him to get that big contract stuff. Well, he was wrong. You know what I mean? He just flat out stunk, and he played even worse on the field. So you got to blow
Yeah.
this thing up and move forward. And it's embarrassing. And for the Bills, good solid win for them at home and kind of a laugher.
13-3, 8-0 at home for Buffalo, putting up the 40, and Josh Allen continued to make his case for MVP, and then the Jets fall to 4-12, 2-7 on the road. I mean, this is how bad it is for the Jets. They can't score, they can't move the football. Rodgers looks like a shell of himself. They play no defense. They can't get to the quarterback. I mean, it's you're going to have a bunch of teams looking for quarterbacks. That's why I'm saying, like, going back, not to belabor the point, if you want the number one, hey, who doesn't? But if you're not in love with any of the quarterbacks, then you trade the pick and you get assets. So, and I'm still, my phone is like, it's blowing up. I mean, a couple of my buddies are like, hey, remember a couple things that Dable and the Raiders GM have a lot of mutual friends. Both are Polian guys. They're in the league due to the Polians. Don't be surprised if they flick picks. Giants are going to continue to try to win big next week. Dable didn't want that record. If you go back, the Giants should have easily have beaten the Saints as well. So they could have won a couple more games this year. Yeah. And then my buddy, the prop chimes in, texts me saying, look, anyone that thinks that the Giants wanted to draft Sanders is not paying attention. And I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. I really
yeah,
do.
yeah.
I think they're not a quarterback away, and I think the narratives you have to make a splash. You have to go out and get one of these electrifying players at the quarterback position to put fannies in the seats to reignite the offense. Well, the offense looked good with Drew Lock today, 45 points. Well, again, you had a kick return, but still 45 points. The quarterback was slinging it. Fix the offensive line. You've got weapons. Theo Johnson's a good tight end. You've got Neighbors. You've got Robinson. You've got Tracy. You've got a veteran back in Singletary. Fix the offensive line. Any quarterback can be good behind a decent offensive line. So this notion that you've been saying it, they're not a quarterback away. But then again, what team is? What team that we're looking at right now? Tennessee, Cleveland, the Jets, Vegas. I'm looking at teams that look. New England's got a quarterback. Jacksonville has a quarterback. Carolina believes they have a quarterback. Chicago believes they have a quarterback. But then you got the Raiders. Are they a quarterback away? Are the Jets a quarterback away? Cleveland, the Giants, Tennessee, are they a quarterback away? I don't think so.
No, they need a quarterback to build around, but there's so many other pieces that are going to need to come together, and particularly a lot of those teams you named, they're going to have different coaching staffs. So, a lot of times when you get that bonus baby quarterback and you put them with a brand new coach, it does not work out. So, and we've talked over and over again. I've been looking at this prospects list coming out in the draft, and Shador Sanders and Ward, yeah, they're solid quarterbacks, but they're not to me that franchise changing quarterback. You think about the Colts, how bad they were after Peyton Manning got hurt and he was done, and they went and
Right.
got Andrew Luck, and he changed the fortunes of those teams. I don't see that with either of these quarterbacks, and why tank for them? I remember everybody saying, "Oh, tank for Tua," and
Yep.
how did that turn out? Tua's, yes, he's a solid pro and all that, but did he really change their overall franchise? Think of the Jameis Winston going to the Buccaneers. Did they really change course after he got there? So,
Right.
you got to be careful with, and a lot of these first rounders. I went over that on my show. We looked at all the guys who are first round quarterbacks. There's so many busts out of all these first round quarterbacks. Guys like Jake Locker and this never got it done, and they were supposed to be a face of franchise.
Yeah. By the way, tonight Atlanta and Washington's pretty much gonna we'll figure out how the the last playoff spot. I mean, think about it: the Lions, the Eagles, the Rams, the Packers, the Vikings, and then you got the Commanders. You got the Bucks with the big win. They need Atlanta to lose. They'll lock it up, and then Washington, if they get the win, they lock up a playoff spot. That's going to be the NFC. I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, forget about Seattle that has a 0.1% chance, and then in the AFC, again, it's right there. It's pretty much the Bengals and Denver, right? And Denver's pretty much sitting right around 60%, 62%. And then the Dolphins on the outside looking in. Cincinnati would make it interesting if they got in, but Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Texans, Steelers, Chargers, Browns. I mean, you look at the Chiefs, Bills, and the Ravens, very good football teams. And then the NFC, you look at the Vikings, the Lions, the Eagles, the Packers. I mean, look, I might not want to play the Bucks. So pretty much tonight's game is going to decide everything and close it out. And then, as we mentioned, Denver is pretty much going to get in. They would have loved to have done it yesterday. All right, quickly, quickly, overall thoughts from what transpired today. What are you thinking?
There was some entertaining football out there, and I know fantasy footballers. This is their championship week, so they had their eyes on it. But it's good to see these bad teams have some fight in them. I know some people are worried about draft position and all that stuff, but it's good to see the Giants out there put up a fight. But yeah, the Buccaneers definitely showed that they're a dangerous team. The Bills took care of business, and the Eagles as well. So the cream's rising to the top, and our cards almost set for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my friend, we will let you get out and finish the rest of the 4 o'clock slates. We will do it again tomorrow on the drive with Q, but always appreciate you joining me for a couple moments on a special Sunday edition of the drive with Q. Appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
Here.